the dual lane highway, right? And I get out, and one of those tires is flat, dead flat, right?
This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
So I had kind of forgotten about this story. I'm going to get straight stuck into it. My name's Dave Nixon. This is Mood Prep. And this is Lagavulin. And I was actually at the in-laws' place a couple of weeks back, and I said to... Something came up about it, and I said to Bernie, father-in-law, I said, I've told you about my trip to America, haven't I? He's like, which one? So the first one, with the Dodge Challenger. He's like, I don't think so. I was like, all right, take a seat. Take a seat, son. Gather around. And everything was sweet. I kind of sorted myself out by this stage. I had I had a fucking sweet car. I had it all figured out by this point, right? I still had some money in the bank as well. I had some money come through sooner rather than later. I think it might have been tax money. And so I was good. The plan was train in the morning, pack my bags, drive south, go check out the national parks. Utah, just to clarify, that's the Wile E. Coyote. Like, if you think about that as cartoons, like that kind of, like, out of this world, right? And so then come back, stay a night in Salt Lake City, then fly up to Portland, Oregon, train with Chris Duffin up there, stay at another Airbnb, and figure out how to get down to LA, right? That was the plan. Whew. So I went in the morning. I trained at Park City. Finished there probably about 10 a.m. This still gives me like, I think I had to have the car back by like 6 or something. So I had like 8 hours. But I probably didn't give a fuck. I probably was just going to, I think they said just bring it back whenever you bring it back on that day, right? And they're not going to have it out by that night. So I was probably going to drop it back at like 8 or 9 or whatever. The GPS was telling me that the national park, the closest one was about 4 hours away, I think. Fuck yeah. I'll drive 4 hours in this bad boy. So I get some supplies and I hit the road. And fuck, it was amazing. The whole location was amazing. And I was driving, and it had been sunny and hot the whole week that I was in Utah, and I drove through the biggest storm. Now, I was confident driving on the other side of the road, but I'm in the other side of the car on a V8 in the middle of fucking nowhere. My phone was still on Telstra, which is the Australian provider. I just switched over there, so they were obviously working with someone else, whoever their partner is. So I didn't have an American SIM. I had an Australian SIM. I just paid more to use it over there. And so the service wasn't that good. And I'm driving south and taking in like all of the amazing, I don't know where my photos of this would be, taking in all of the amazing scenery. And after about 4 hours of driving, the GPS was telling me, like, take this turn. And so I took the turn, and it went from a freeway to like a single lane highway. And I'm looking at the GPS, and I didn't have the ability to look at the GPS on my phone at this stage, right? So I'm using like a TomTom or a sat-nav. I think it was a TomTom. And so I'm using that, and I'm like, how can a national park be down here? Anyway, I'll drive down. And it's been about 4 hours of driving, right? And seeing amazing scenery. And then it told me to turn down this like kind of dirt road. I'm like it was an obvious dirt road that has been designed for something. It wasn't like if I'm going to the coast here in Australia, there's a dirt road that just has the lines for where the tires have driven, and then that's bush. It wasn't like that. It was like almost like a paved, deliberate, gravelly kind of road. I'm like, there is no way a national park is down there. So I just like, fuck it. I'll just keep driving. Drove like another 10 minutes and was like, fuck it. I'll just turn around. It's already, I think it's coming up to 4 o'clock. I'm like, it's time to go home. Right. Time to go home, get my stuff, go back to Salt Lake City, get there late, but so be it. And yeah, I've had fun. It's already worth the story. And so driving back, I drove back by that same dirt road. And I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to be here again. I'm just going to turn down it. And so I turned down it, and it's sort of like the scenery of the terrain of Utah is literally out of this world. It's like there's just plateaus of rock, right? It's really phenomenal. And so I drove down there, and I'm sort of slowly negating my way. I'm twisting and turning, and it's just like seeing this beautiful, amazing rock that's like literally 50 meters away. Yeah, or even closer, and I'm like, this is amazing. And then I got this really weird feeling in my gut. I'm like, oh, something just doesn't feel right. Something just does not feel right. And it went from being like right, to then I'm like, fuck, no one can see me from the highway. And I just went, woof, and I just got this fucking, like this rat was like making itself dry, reaching my stomach basically, right? And I was like, fuck this. So I turned this boat of a V8 around, like a 4-point turn or something. And I started driving back. And I went about 50 meters before I started getting flashing signs on the actual computer of the car letting me know that the PSI in one of the tires was going down. And I'm like, oh, and so this fucking sick feel. I'm sweating, this sick feeling just going through me. And I'm like edging this car over cattle grids, and I edge it all the way back to the highway, the dual lane highway, right? And I get out, and one of those tires is flat, dead flat, right? Now, it makes sense that I obviously drove over something, but I didn't. The tire was cracked on the actual wall. It had like a 15 centimeter crack along the wall. Right, sure, you don't drive those tires on I know this, on a road like that, but fuck me, it was cracked on the wall, and so I was like, all right, well, I popped the boot, and I'm thinking like, okay, I thought I was gonna get butt raped. I thought that there was people on the like, I was by myself. This is what I thought. I'm sweaty. I'm just someone's meat. I'm just gonna end up like a human centipede. This is exactly what the thoughts were going through my mind. And I'm not out of danger yet, right? So I pop the boot, and there's no spare tire. I think they had like some sort of fill thing there. I had no idea how to use it. It didn't come with instructions. There was no spare tire. There was nothing. And I am fucking flipping it. And it's hot. Like Australian-wise, it's 41 degrees, something like 39 degrees minimum. And I also stopped next to a dead creek bed, and there was mosquitoes like the size of my thumb, and like maybe a little tiny bit smaller than the size of my thumb, but those mosquitoes were fucking, you could hear them like talking. That's how big they were, right? Yeah, 10 minutes. I got to keep finishing this one. This one can go for longer. That's 8 minutes. Yeah. Whew. And what was I to do? What was I to do? I sat back in the car, and I think I screamed. Probably cried. Locked the doors though, of course. You're gonna fucking come butt rape me. You're gonna break into the car. And I ended up flagging a car down, and they had a boat as well. I don't know where the fuck the water was, but they had a boat. And they're like, they couldn't help. They didn't like. They would tell me like what road I'm on. I had no idea. I think I had to write it down. But I had no idea where I was. Absolutely no idea. And the GPS, it was a shitty old GPS that wasn't able to explain to me. Like, it told me where I was, but not in relation to anything else. I didn't know how to fucking use it. So I'd be like, oh, how far am I away from this? And it's like, you are 400 miles away. And it's like, well, that's fucking no use to me. And so I'm there for on and off the phone to Budget, right? So I'm on and off the phone to them. I'm calling them, and then it would cut out because my phone had next to no service. I had no fucking spare tire. No one could fucking help me, so to speak, that was coming past. And I was probably petrified, if I think back on it, about telling someone that, like, you know, hey, my car just went flat. Can you help me? They're like, sure. Get in my car. Like, what was I meant to do? It's like, no, I'll fight you with your gun. I thought everyone in America had a gun at this stage. This is what Hollywood taught me in the news. And so, anyway, I was fucking flipping it. And all I had with me was a backpack as well. I didn't have a change of clothes. I probably needed it after this. And so, on and off the phone to Budget. And I finally get onto them again. It's coming up to 6 p.m. and I get onto them again, and I can't remember her name. I wrote it down in the book. It was like Letitia or some shit. And excuse me. The thing is that I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for 20 minutes, and then the phone would just cut out because of reception. It's still so painful to think about. Oh man, it's so painful to think about. And I get back onto this chick, and she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, she called 20. She said 20 tow truck companies, and no one is going to come out. And I'm like, I've got your car here in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. I literally have your car with a flat tire that a tourist from Australia has. That, like, what am I meant to do? And she goes, you're going to have to call highway patrol. Like, what the fuck? I was like, okay. So I called 911, and here I am, probably quivering. Right. Called 911, and they were country Utah 911. Hello, like, just, and I was like, look, no offense to anyone in Utah, it's just country. We have country here in Australia as well. And yeah, all right, mate. Yeah, no, I'll come out. That's what it is. It's the Australian version of what I was talking to. And I was like, look, I'm an Australian tourist. I have a Dodge here that I got from Budget. It's got a flat tire, hasn't got a spare tire. They have been here for 2 hours, and they told me to call you because they can't get a tow truck. And they were like, okay, we'll send a unit, right? And so I sat there for half an hour. Now, what I haven't told you is that I think just before I got onto Budget again, was only just before I got onto them again, I remember flipping out. And it's coming up to, like, I got onto them at, let's say I got on them at 6 p.m. This is like 5:50. I've been there for an hour and 50 minutes in that car by myself, like on and off the phone, and it's fucking hot, right? And I flipped it. I remember absolutely fucking losing it. And I was crying, just like, I thought I was going to die. And I sat there for a second, just exhausted. And I looked across, and on the dash of where the passenger seat was, said the name of the car. And the name of the car was Challenger. And I just sat there for a second. I'm like, it's just a fucking challenge. It is just another challenge. It's just challenging you to see how you respond. And within about 7 seconds, I went from crying to laughing because of how I was responding to this situation. And then I calmed myself down, and then that's when I got back on the phone to Budget. And it's a lesson that I'll always live with, right? Fucking crazy. The fact that it was a Challenger. And then later on, if you know my work with the Enneagram, the fact that the type that I align with most is the Challenger. It's quite hilarious. So anyway, the police come along, and he's got his wide brim hat on, and he looks at me, barely says a fucking word. I'm like, hey, he's like, what's the problem? I'm like, I got a flat tire. It's a hire car, and there's no spare. There you go. Okay. I'll take a seat. Just tells me to get back in my car. Then he goes and sits in his car behind it. And we wait. Half an hour later, a tow truck comes over, right? So Budget's like, who wants this job? Every fucking tow truck in country Utah is like, not on a Saturday afternoon, I'm going to sit down and drink piss, right? Yeah, not that anyone in Utah does that. And so, this tow truck comes over, and he pulls up, and he was not impressed. I'm speaking to humans now, right? This is exciting for me. He was not excited at all. Kenny, the tow truck driver, was not excited to see me. And he just pulls up, and then he points down the road. He looks at me and goes, "Did you drive down there?" And I'm like, No, I just pulled in. I didn't drive down there at all." And he didn't believe me, which is fair enough. I didn't believe me. Anyway, so we get on the back of the tow truck. I jump in the passenger side, and he did not want to talk to me. So we head off to Green River, and that's where I'll tell more of the story tomorrow. But up for now, that's it. If you find the story interesting, feel free to pass it on to a friend, because it just gets more interesting. But until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. Slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.